Can you hear that? I think that is the sound of Listen being useless. Yes, Listen, Hunter's favorite trait, said nobody ever. Listen is a Hunter trait that every new player starts off with. And man, at the beginning it feels so strong, being able to locate players anywhere on the map with the press of a button. Broken. That is, until survivors realize that if they stand still or tiptoe, it doesn't reveal them at all. That usually takes a survivor 2 to 3 matches to realize. The Hunter will also soon realize that there is usually enough game information to find survivors, spawn points being fixed, cipher machine wiggling, and well, common sense. Listen then quickly gets tossed aside like a survivor being whacked away from an open dungeon. We've all experienced that. Listen is useless. Used less than the fabled Survivor's Spectator that was recently replaced with the flywheel effect that's actually meta now. Why hasn't NetEase replaced it yet like they did with Spectator? The same reason why Cold Stare and the old trait known only as hiding never came to life. It's too difficult to add Hunter traits in Identity 5, and NetEase is too reluctant to add something big and do big balance changes. So, let's keep Listen, but let's make some changes to it to make it more viable, combining some of the rumored traits and a little spice to make it something fun, but not too broken. First things first, the information Listen gives isn't competitive. Even if it were to reveal survivor locations 80 or 60 seconds into the match, it wouldn't be picked over Blink, Teleport, or Patroller. You don't need that information as you already have it. So let's change Listen to be the survivors having to listen, not you. I'm taking 2 hunters, well actually killers, from Dead by Daylight, and I'm taking their abilities and fusing them together. Wraith is a DBD hunter who can turn himself invisible, turning off his heartbeat and increasing his movement speed, similar to Ripper in some way. But unlike Ripper, he can of course turn his heartbeat off. The downside? He can't attack while invisible, and going visible again makes him walk at a snail's pace and unable to interact or attack for 1 to 2 seconds. Let's take some of these abilities and delete Listen's existing ability of course, and imagine this, a hunter activates Listen. Now their heartbeat has been turned off and their red light has also been removed. Drawbacks? The hunter cannot attack whilst using Listen. Awesome, but is that good enough for most hunters? No. It helps you get around the map quietly for sure, but you're still visible from a mile away, and you can't use this in chase. Easy, let's add invisibility to this ability too. That would be, I think, unfair, especially since the ability would need to have a short cooldown to make it remotely viable at all. So why not take Sadako's ability from Dead by Daylight instead? Her ability is to be 100% invisible from a distance, but when in close range with the survivor, she becomes intermittently visible. 1 second she is visible, the next she's not. This would make the ability useful for chase, as you could trick the survivor into not seeing where you're coming from, but also give some counterplay to survivors as they see you visible every other second or two. The problem is the time it takes to go from having Listen turned on and not being able to attack, and having it turned off and being able to attack. If it's too fast, then tight kiters would have no chance against this ability, but if it's too long, then hunters will never be able to use it in chase. My idea is something along these lines. The longer you have Listen activated, the shorter the exiting Listen takes. My thoughts, it would be 2.5 seconds to exit the Listen after using the ability for 6 seconds or less, 2 seconds to exit the ability for 8 seconds or less of using the ability, and a 1 second frame for you to be able to grab from Listen on to Listen off if you use your invisibility for more than 8 seconds. Not sure how viable that is, but that's just the basic idea. You can mess around with those numbers or change it up to whatever you think looks better. Whilst using Listen, all interactions would be increased by 20% for the hunter, and the movement speed would also be increased considerably. I'm not quite sure how much, but quite a lot. Counterplay would be similar to Wraith's counterplay in Dead by Daylight. You can stand in a pallet and wait until they turn visible before dropping that pallet, as they can't interact or hit you in that 1 split second or 2 or 2.5 seconds. Would this be viable? Maybe. There are some hunters who don't have any traits that suit them perfectly, so having this option might make Listen viable for once. So after all of this, why am I calling it Listen still? Because the only indication that survivors would have as to if you are approaching is the sound of the hunter's footsteps. Scary, as a horror game should be. What do you think of this idea? Is it too broken? Is it too good? Or is it absolutely terrible? If you want to see which traits the community think are the strongest for each hunter, then you need to check out this video here. There is definitely a common theme in this video.